Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Now we have a very interesting fireside chat on a very interesting topic, and it's called Entrepreneurship Post Motherhood. I'm sure most of you or many of you are very interested in this topic and has struggled with this concept. So for that today, we have two very interesting speakers that have come on board and is willing to have a very interesting conversation amongst themselves to kind of bring to light a lot of interesting aspects of this particular topic. At first, we have Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. Vasanthi Srinivasan is a professor of organizational behavior and human resource management at IIM Bangalore. She is extensively involved in designing and delivering leadership programs for Indian and international companies. Her MOOC course, Introduction to People Management, motivates her to effectively harness technology for learning impact. We are glad to have her join on such an interesting topic today. We also have Ms. Sheeba Sen. Ms. Sheeba Sen is the co-founder of Hasten Regeneration. 3 years ago, she also founded Allah, a social enterprise with a mission to catalyze regeneration in India. She practiced at an international law firm in London for 3 years before returning to work in rural India. We are glad to have both of you here today to talk about this very relevant and interesting topic. Over to you both. Thank you.
Welcome to this fireside chat, Sheeba, and it's such a pleasure to have you with us in this session. I think one just has to Google your name and the kind of work that you've done in your space just kind of pops out. And as I was preparing for this conversation with you and I looked at it, you've done some really incredible professional things, which I'm sure you're going to talk about. But most importantly, what struck me when I was looking at all the things that you've done is really how have you navigated the personal and the professional? Why am I asking this question? Because over and over again, over the 2 decades that I have been involved in looking at women and women's careers, I find that whether it is in the corporate space or in the entrepreneurial space, I think we have a long, long way to go. And just looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem around us, it doesn't matter which data point you pick, whether it's number of women entrepreneurs, whether it's the investments that are made, whether it's the number of co-founders who are women, whether it is about the unicorns that have gone live, any parameter that you take, it appears that women entrepreneurs are not there. So in some ways, I think today's fireside chat is about being able to get you to reflect on your experiences as you look at your own journey as an entrepreneur and a career woman before that. Over to you, Sheeba.
Thanks, Professor, for having me and welcoming me. It's a real privilege to chat to you and for the rest of the team here. And I think this reflection is actually an everyday thing, whether I like it or not. Sometimes I'm forced to reflect on my choices when I'm sitting on my desk, desperately wanting to do something. But there are other things in other people that need me. And that's how our units are built. That's how our society is built. And a great part of it is also we like it like that. I mean, women have a great nurturing gene in them. We love to nurture things, nurture people. But in most of the times in doing that, we are not encouraged to nurture ourselves in various ways. And that truly is the journey.
Mm. Yeah. So tell us something more about yourself. After London School of Economics, what happened the last decade of your life?
Right. Gosh. So those are the 20s of my life after LSE. I'd say very hot-blooded. I had very opinionated. I would be quite sometimes arrogant about what I thought was right and how I would judge things in peoples and cultures. But also equally very lost. I think I was very dissatisfied with what I was doing in life. I had been to good schools. I had learned a lot. I'd got myself a job in a big law firm, coming from a middle class family. I mean, those were the goals. It's a very familiar Indian story. I don't need to talk about that, whether it's for boys or for girls. You know, we have to build our life. And I got job in a big law firm where I was, had a stability of a good salary. I was surrounded by very intelligent people, but I felt very empty. I felt it was really meaningless. And in some ways I felt I wasn't allowed to feel like that, because I come from a middle class family and I have to do the right thing of supporting my family and building a life of my own. And this is really for the privileged lot who have, space to think about that. Oh, I don't like this, job, and I want to find myself and I want to do something that gives me meaning and joy. So I had to go through that as well in my time. But thankfully I did. I had some good forces around me that gave me the strength to feel okay about being dissatisfied. And so again, it's a very familiar story. I took a U-turn and I said, I want to be back home. I want to do something that gives me meaning primarily. And my meaning is derived by being, adding value to the society in whatever way I can. It's my need, So it was a very wide open expanse. And I came back home. My parents were concerned, very concerned. But I think the upside on this, we are talking about women. I find the kind of family that I came from, they obviously supported me. But also I think as a woman, I had a bit of less of a pressure. I think the same thing that my brother would have done. He's the boy, he's the man. He cannot take risks like this. So I always tell to other women that, there are a lot of upsides as well when you are taking tough decisions of being a woman, and take that to your advantage. So I did, and I came back home, and all I knew was I wanted to make myself useful. I wanted to use the experience and the education that I had, put it to better use. And then one thing led to another. It was a risky path looking back at it, but when you're in it and you're very, I suppose, driven, you don't think of it as risks. That's the only choices you have to make. So I did that. Yeah.
And then when did marriage and child happen?
Yeah, I think so marriage, I had already met my future husband at the time when I wanted to come back home. So just to add a bit of masala, to the whole scenario. And my husband is born and raised in England. My in-laws live here. And I was so compelled to build a life for me back home again. And my lens was really, my need is more emotional. I just feel I belong there. And there was no other issues of why I wanted to be back home, or why I didn't want to be in India, And that, luckily, my now husband understood, though it took time, because I myself was not able to articulate it in a line that I can now. It was very messy for me. And it became messy because he was here, his family was here, whom I loved, and they loved me. And I had a life for me here. And I didn't know what my life would be back home. And I definitely didn't know what life can be for him in India. That was the big elephant in the room. So yeah, it wasn't a straight line. It was very messy. There was a lot of up and down. There was a lot of confusion, misunderstanding, stress on all relationships of mine, whether it's with him, with my mom, with my parents. To an extent, I'm sure with my in-laws, that they have always been very gracious. And at that time, our daughter wasn't there. So once she arrived in the middle of all this transition period, it was a transition period. I came back home. I found one thing led to another, and I found a job at Arohi. It was like a calling to me. I felt at a personal level, I felt I'm a country girl. I've been raised in a city, but I love country life. I could easily not be an entrepreneur and just have a cottage and have some cattle and kids and bake all day and feed the village. I think I can totally do that. I love it. But at the same time, I felt so invigorated and purposeful when I worked directly in rural India. It was a real sheer privilege for me, and I wanted to make the most of it. I still do. But in the midst of it, I've got all the other things that are so important to me and to a great extent also define me. We had to navigate that path. We had to live apart. We had to figure out how we build a life together in India. What will my husband do? What will I do? Where will be our home? How will our parents support us? It happened in a messy way. Yeah. It didn't happen in a very, it's like, how women always have a pressure to look perfect and be composed and poised. I don't think it was like that for me. But it worked out. Yeah. And our child arrived, and we just had to, she was just another thing that we were managing, and we would live apart. Those were tough times.
Yeah.
But it happened. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheeba. Thanks for that candidness. Yeah. I mean, I really, really appreciate this, because I think for the audience, I'm sure many of them will be able to resonate with this, right? When you have two individuals, both of whom have their identities, both of whom have their aspirations, it's constantly negotiation. Yeah. And then you take 2 steps forward, and then you put 1 step back, and then you wonder whether you've missed the bus. And then you come back and you find that you really haven't missed the bus. Yeah, it's going to just take you a few more months or a year to reach that destination, But I think
that wisdom is always in the hindsight. But I think one thing I've learned is that, just have faith, and that'll give you the strength to be poised and, sort of quiet to an extent you can be on the inside, because there is no race here. There is no time clock here, which is just such an imposed sort of a thing here that, whether it's startups growing at an exponential rate, or whether it's your career, you missed the boat in your 30s, and it's really not like that.
Yeah. So true, so true. And I think that's possibly one of the important takeaways for many, many women and men who are listening to this conversation, because I think some of these conversations are about men who have spouses who could be as empowered as you were. So when you're looking at dual households, right, this pacing becomes so important for overall life experience. Yeah. I think what kind of struck me as I was listening to you is this willingness to live with the mess. Yeah. Sometimes I know it's not easy, but the most important one is just like you said, have faith, be calm, just recognize that things are messy, and they can't be cleaned like that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They don't happen that way. Yeah. So I think it's this willingness to live with it and yet stick to your purpose, your conviction, which I think becomes really important. And my only advice to the women who are listening to it, and I say this to the corporate women, just stay in the career. And I think that's exactly what I would echo for the entrepreneurs. Just stay. Yeah, that's it.
And I think to live with the mess, I can say from my experience to everyone who's listening here, don't put too much pressure on you. It comes with practice, like with anything. I was not this comfortable embracing messiness and complexity. But I'd like to think I am a much more at peace with complexity now, whether it's professional complexity or at a project level or personal relationships. You're managing your parents, your in-laws, your partners, your marriage. Gosh, that's a universe in itself. Then you have children, and then you have your own, yourself. You are getting older, you are changing. Like you said, with women, there's so much going on all the time, and there's pressure about, whether you're healthy, how you're managing home, how you're managing children, do you have a nanny, and everything. So it comes with practice. So just stick it out there, and it's very liberating when you learn to embrace complexity. Yeah, it's very humbling, actually.
Yeah. Yes, so true, so true. Just listening to you, I wondered what you thought of this biggest myth that has been imposed, I think, on women. And women have themselves tended to believe in it, on this notion of work-life balance. To be honest with you, for some years, I got sucked into it. And then I realized that for me, there is work, there is life, and there is some sense of equilibrium in the long run. But the idea that work-life balance happens every day, 365 days a year, wonder who constructed that myth. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
It's a myth. That's my first short answer. I think it's a coup to sort of make women feel either that go for it, but they'll always feel inadequate if you're aspiring for that. So I think it's a coup, it's a myth. But what is work in life? I think the first question is, as we talked about resilience, and we talked about embracing complexity and knowing that it is fine. It is your path is going to be complex because you're managing multiple relationships, and even men do. But I think right now the pressure on us women to be seen to be managing that is a little bit more. And we don't have as many sort of graces as possible. So in that context, I think always ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And that's not only in relation to work, it's also in relation to why am I in this relationship? Why do I want to be a mommy? Why do I want to be a little bit aggressive and go in for that promotion or grab that salary raise or start be a founder at a startup? And always ask yourself and put in the effort to articulate the why, because that is your work-life balance. That is your guiding North Star that'll put things in perspective, even when you're falling apart, even when you think that you failed your child today, even when you think you failed your team today. I work right now in all male team, and it's different. It is different. But when you come back to saying that, okay, why am I still putting myself in it? It doesn't feel like a failure. You just think, right, I've had a busy day today, and there's only one me. And share it with your team. Don't be scared to say, what, I can't do this today because I'm falling apart, or this is too much for me. Say this to your child. Say this to your husband, whoever it is. So, but it's the why. That is your work-life balance. There is no other thing is balancing. And work and life, if your why is clear, then the distinction between the two is also very, it's very gray. It's your work is very much a part of who you are and what your life is. And your life has a lot of meaning from what you do, so they're not totally separate.
So true, so true. And very well said on this, because I think particularly for entrepreneurs, I have found that all the time male entrepreneurs tell me that their work life is blurred. And I see this echoed by women entrepreneurs, because your enterprise is one child, you have another one at home. So, it requires almost similar kind of an attention. It's almost like you're rearing two children at the same time. Yeah. So just kind of building on that, what has been, what was your experience? Because during your maternity, you were already a woman entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What did you experience? Because there are multiple dimensions to the whole idea of pregnancy. Yeah. There is obviously the physical, then there is, of course, the psychological, and of course, there is this whole societal ideas of how a pregnant woman should be. Yeah. I'm sure all of us negotiate those boundaries. But what is it that you saw as a strength that during the pregnancy that you were able to bring, and how did that impact you as an entrepreneur? How did being an entrepreneur impact the way you saw yourself as a mother? Anything at all?
And Professor, for me, motherhood has been the most powerful force so far in my life. I think it is a mirror to me, and that's I would say, a really powerful tool that I have for self-growth. That's how I look at motherhood. It's really a tool for my self-growth. So when I was pregnant, I think, firstly, I recommend it. It's a very exciting time of a woman's life. I was not very cognizant of, the things we are talking about now. I wasn't thinking about it in that manner, at least very consciously. But I think just, knowing that you will be responsible for another life, I think it made me more empathetic. It made me more forgiving. I think so. And because I needed that empathy, and I needed that, forgiveness of being all over the place at times. And I think it made me, it put my work in a lot more perspective for me. It became very personal, more personal than it was before. And when the lens moves from just fulfilling your needs to being outside of you, real meaning is emerges then in whatever you are and what you do. So for me, it was a very empowering time. And a big reason for that is not just me, it's my husband, who is amazing. I'm very lucky. So choose your partners well. It's very important. And also my family, because, while, they were worried about me being in the back of Beyond and all the rest, and even raising Tara after she was born, I would take my child everywhere with me because that was the only thing I had. They were worried, but they were still very supportive, So I think it's you are never on your own, and at the same time, so if something bad happens, it's not entirely because of you, but at the same time, when you achieve something and when something good happens, it's also not entirely because of you. You're always part of an interdependent web, and it became very clear to me, and still does. Yeah.
So several years ago, I was doing a study on women professionals. And I was interviewing extraordinarily successful women in their careers. And I asked them, saying, what makes them stay at work? And it's quite interesting. And this study obviously was in India. And they called out on the 3 M's. They said the mother, the mother-in-law, and the third clearly was a maid there, where they said that with the 3, I can manage to stay, grow, drive, all of that.
Yeah, you're interdependent and ask for help. I mean, for me, I've learned this along the way. It did not come naturally to me because you know how women are. We just feel we are responsible to the last mile, whether it's that thing at work or that proposal or that pitch deck that we've made. We need to make sure that we've done it, and at the same time, whether it's what's being eaten and whether it's been cleared or the cupboard's cleared, everything is our responsibility. No. So yeah, and it comes with practice.
Yeah.
It comes with practice.
Yeah. So true. So true. So let me take one more aspect to being a woman entrepreneur, particularly during your, especially when you're growing your business like you are. How do you manage? So every decision that you make in your personal life has professional consequences. And every decision you make in your professional life has personal consequences. And one of which you were talking about, saying, I was going to take my daughter and I'm going to take her out. And then there are a whole set of people who are saying, leave her behind, or what happens when you're here and some. So a lot of decisions that we make in one part of our life spill over into the other. What has been your experience in terms of how you've negotiated these? Especially because it's coupled with a whole notion of guilt, especially leaving behind the child or not having enough time for the child. And I hear this over and over again from both working professionals as well as women entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
How have you negotiated?
Well, I'm negotiating.
Uh-huh.
I think at the outset I'd like to say that it's quite difficult. I find it difficult. But then we've talked about it, then you embrace it. When you embrace something the way it's meant to be, then you respond differently. So I know that it's difficult. So what I'm doing on an everyday basis, it's not easy. So that gives me strength. And I really struggle. I really do every day. And I think the way I'm negotiating, let me spell out the mess first, an everyday mess that I feel I'm overworked. I feel I'm the only one who's thinking of all the things. And while my husband is very supportive, he doesn't have the pressure that he puts on himself to think whether our groceries have been shopped, often in the middle of my pitch decks, I'm thinking, damn, that garlic isn't there for tonight, and what is going to be cooked, or is the milk there for the evening snack when Tara is back from school? It's a reality, and I have that pressure on myself. I have put many things that I want to do and certain things that I'm expected to do. So it's a combination of both. And at the same time, I feel sometimes I run short of what I can deliver at my work and my team. And especially as a CEO of a growing company, I'm petrified. Like, I have gone to a therapist to say, I don't think I can lead a global company, I don't think so, because I'm raising a family and so far we've won. What if we grow, and how will I do it? I want to be good at what I do. I don't want to, not be delivering my 100%. So I think I land up feeling that I'm doing too much, and no one appreciates that. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And so you are the mother who is tired, who is snappy at times, is go and do this because I'm tired, Tara, I've had enough, And then the dad comes from work and he's had a very productive day because he's away from home. He's got an office, so he compartmentalizes and comes back home. He's in a very good mood and he said, all right, let's do something. And, so the child is like, mom's always, stressed out, and it's more fun to be with the dad. Well, this is perfectly normal, but in moments I feel like, oh, I've lost this as well now, and then because I'm allocating a lot of time to household and, Tara's needs, my daughter, in the day, I often will have a 10 p.m. call when she's in bed, when dinner is finished, when the kitchen is closed and the dog is in the bed, everyone is doing settle down. Then I will go back to the study and have my calls because I don't have the time to do that in the day often. So then he'll be like, Mommy, you're always working. No, So I think the way to deal with it is, for me, having a very understanding partner, I think, is the biggest help that I have, because even if the other person doesn't do things differently, you can voice it. You feel that you can say it out, and there's someone to listen to you. Often your mothers can't fill that role.
No.
Because mothers, they're a product of their own time, and mothers and daughters, it's a tough relationship. But to have a man or your partner, whoever it is, to listen to you, that in itself is often enough for us. And that validation that, you're good, you're fine, it's okay. And you get on with it. There is no other magic wand to actually do this right now. And the other thing I've learned is ask for help. So whether it's domestic help, it's okay. If you didn't bake that cake and someone else baked it for you, you made a choice. You also wanted to do your work. So in that moment, you made a choice that, okay, I'm ready to go baking the cake. I want to do my pitch. Fine. So ask for help. Tell people when you're tired, when you're struggling. And that includes your team members. I mean, that's something that I'm working on myself, to feel confident to tell my co-founders or my team, my interns, saying, I can't do this. I'm tired. Can you please fill in for me? Can you do this research? So again, just practice that more consciously with awareness, and you will get better at it.
Yeah, I think this conversation is extremely useful, because I think one of the things I have found over the years as I've worked with women leaders is for us as women to recognize that society is fairly gendered.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes, right, just that recognition that I would have wanted this to be different. But the fact is that this gendering has happened over several thousands of years in terms of allocation of roles to men and women. And that each one of us, and I think that's the point, Sheeba, which becomes very empowering, is each one of us recognizing that we are shifting the gendering in very subtle and small ways. But that's how social change is going to happen, because I'm sure there are hundreds of women out there listening to you today, and I think they can just experience what you're going through. But I think for us to be able to say that, look, I'm working, and I'm just kind of working on all the things that you said earlier, that I had a purpose, and that my existence is for a larger purpose. Yeah. And that purpose means that I need to be able to reach there, right? And I think, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Professor, I feel compelled to say this here, that one clear understanding that has come to me is, while we are shifting and transitioning, this thousands of, old framework of gender roles in society, we are also part of that narrative. So yes. We are not working from the outside of it. Of course, we're going to question the transition ourselves and say, am I being self-centered? Am I being selfish? Am I just, not doing my duties?
Correct.
And isn't it easier to have separation of roles? Yes, there was a reason why women have A, B, C, D to do, and men would do A, B, C, D, and then there's a balance that comes in the house. Right now, we are doing everything, because we're in the midst of that transition. So and we feel terrible about it most of the times.
I've always seen that as very productive tension.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, because if one generation goes through this tension, then you have role models for the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why each one of you women entrepreneurs for me are in some way the bastions and signals of what the world will look like 20 years from now. And I'm kind of sounding so old, but I must tell you that when I started doing this work on women in professional careers, was 2000, Sheba, and you couldn't see women.
Wow. Gosh.
Yeah? And today, diversity has become the buzzword in organizations, and people are talking about gender quotas. And so, in one lifetime, when you see this shift, right?
Yeah.
I just love this conversation with you because I do believe you are at the frontier of tapping into those doors and saying, see us women entrepreneurs. And I hope plenty
Yeah.
of women who are here will actually knock more loudly so that, we have this momentum build up in terms of women entrepreneurs. I think we are kind of exceeding the time. So I'm going to give you the last question. To sum it up, what would you offer as tips for the women who are listening into this chat today?
Gosh, I think it's less of tips maybe, but and it's worth sharing because it's important to put out what we go through to each other and to the world. I mean, like my first thought is like you just said, Professor, stick it out. It's worth it because that's what we want our children to grow up in, that world, right? So we wouldn't wish anything different for our own daughters. So stick it out. It is worth it, even on a daily basis. It is worth it. All this sort of messiness and because that gives you purpose in itself. It drives you. It's important who are the people close to you. It's very important to surround yourself with people who are on your side, who back you. And those your partners, your friends, your colleagues, my co-workers. Like I find them very enabling, my co-workers. They have a big role to play as to how I navigate my space. Thirdly, I'd say, I've written it down actually, that ask for help. It's okay, just delegate and ask for help. It's okay. Yeah, and that'll really improve the quality of your life. And finally, I think I heard this, I can't remember who said this, that we can have everything in life actually as women, but maybe not at the same time. So wherever you are in your life, you take stock, and if certain things are being neglected, you prioritize. And if your first 3-4 priorities are being met and the others not, it's okay in that moment in time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And just two thoughts from where I am as I was listening to you is the first one is that each one of you are making social change happen. Social change takes time. And therefore, now, I'm just reiterating, stay there, stick it out, and keep moving. And the second one, more important, is that, and just building on what Sheeba said, ask for help. To those men who are listening in to this session, we need you as allies to be able to move and shift the world for women entrepreneurs. On that note, thank you so much, Sheeba, for this wonderful, candid conversation. Really appreciate. Thank you so much, and all the very best. Thank you.